So we just got about 7 inches of rain this weekend, and I thought it would be perfect time to go and do a garden tour. Alright, I thought we'd start off by looking at Drew's blueberries. They're coming along. We got quite a few. This is our first year of having blueberries. We actually picked one the other day because it was ripe and we ate it, and it was delicious. The raspberries, we'll go into the garden. The raspberries are looking really good. It looks like I'm going to have quite a harvest off of them again this year. Last year, I want to say we got about 10 pounds of raspberries. This year, we'll probably get about the same amount, if not a little bit more. And we're going to come over here and look at this bed. So I took off the heavier mesh stuff because the rabbit or the squirrel or whatever it was had absolutely destroyed it. And I put on, this is just tulle. That is on there just to keep the cabbage moths from laying their eggs. So the spinach and the radishes are done. We still have the kohlrabi and beets and chard growing. Our leeks right here are growing really well. The lettuce is getting, I was surprised. I thought it was going to bolt by now because of how hot it's been, but it is actually doing really well, and we'll still get a couple of harvests off of that. The kale, as you can tell by the stems, we have been munching away at that and eating that, and it's been growing really well. All of the cabbages, I have been watching them really closely to make sure that there is no cabbage worms on them, and so far so good. I don't want to jinx myself. Some of the lettuce was here. We pulled it out because it went to seed. It just got too hot. The mesh netting seems to be working really well. We had a rabbit in the garden like a week or two ago, and it destroyed the mesh on this. Like completely destroyed it. So we put new tulle back on there, and it seems to be doing well. There was a moth that had flown in there a couple of times, and I was a little worried, but it seems to be okay. The purple cabbage, this is one of my experiment crops. That seems to be coming along really well. And then I was at Menards, and these poor plants called out to me and said, buy me. So I guess we're growing cauliflower. And those are doing well. I don't see any heads on them yet, but they seem to be coming along really nicely. And this is a little lettuce patch, which some of the stuff it's been way too hot for. As you can see, it's already going to seed. But we'll just pull it out and just eat off of the rest of the greens that are in there. And then here the radishes are gone. That one right there has gone to seed and needs to get pulled. There's a lot of weeding that needs to get done in this bed. We'll get there. It's my goal for today is to weed the bed, but I'm going to do this video first instead. But the carrots are coming along really nicely, and hopefully they grow nice and big and long for me. When the rabbit got into my garden, it did eat off some of my beans, but thankfully they seem to be doing really well. We're getting some blossoms on them. They're coming up. Oh look, there's even little green beans growing on them, so I am not too worried about the loss of those. I didn't grow a ton of, I didn't actually grow any sugar snap peas this year. The peas that I did grow that are along the fence there are more of like a cooking, like, I actually don't remember what they're called, but they don't grow as tall, but they keep producing as you pick. So we've been eating those, Andrew and I have been. And then our pepper plants in this bed are coming along really nicely. We got some buds on those. And then the tomatoes are loving all of the rain that we got, and they are just growing like crazy. We got a lot of work of tying up and trimming off suckers. And then there's this plant. I've been trying to grow this type of tomato plant for like 2 years now, and so far this is the biggest I have gotten. It is supposed to be like an atomic grape, I don't know, but it's coming along. And then the cucumbers on this side are starting to trellis up the cucumber trellis, not up my tomatoes. Thank you. And then we have some purple beans down here that are also going to be working their way up this trellis. And we have a tree. We don't want a tree in the garden. Who wants a tree in their garden? And then the onions, as you can see around this bed, are doing well. So, same thing in this bed. We have beans, peas, we got little tomatoes growing, and pepper plants. And they're all growing really nicely, coming along. These were just started, these bean plants were just started maybe 2 or 3 weeks after the ones on the end, but the ones on the end had squirrels digging them up and had all sorts of other things that were happening to them, rabbits eating them, but they're coming along nicely. Look at those pretty flowers. Love those purple buds on them, and they seem to be doing well. Look at them grow. Definitely a lot of weeding to do. Could be worse, but it's not. The pepper plants over here are doing really well. Look at all those flowers, all those peppers, and the tomato plants as well. We're getting lots of little tomatoes on there. Cucumber plants, this one didn't take off as well, but this one's starting to come along. It's growing. This is my celerac and it seems to be taking off really well. Which celerac is basically a root crop. It tastes just like celery, and we can probably harvest these stalks off if we want for eating. I just haven't yet, but they are growing like crazy. So then we'll come around here. So I had planted beans, lima beans, right here, and this one is the only one that took off. So I planted some more literally like a week ago, and they've all taken off, which I'm really happy about. And then I had planted okra. I had planted okra next to my other bean patches, which we'll get to in a minute, and like none of those took off. So I went ahead and planted, there's one there, and then a couple over there, and those have started to grow really nicely. So we will get okra this year. My loofahs, I had to replant those because they didn't come up the first time, and they're coming up now, which I'm excited about. Right here is supposed to be a little tiny cucamelon, like little tiny cucumbers that kind of have a sweet melony taste. They just will not grow for me. So this is like my third time planting it. Hopefully it can get going before all of these take over the bed and it has no room to grow. So then I have more of squashes and zucchinis, which is a squash. And then I have a cucumber plant, which doesn't want to grow up the trellis. It wants to grow away from the trellis. So I'm trying to get the cucumber plant to go up the trellis. Then we got more. The last minute thing, I forgot to plant soybeans, so I planted some soybeans along here, which is one of those I forgot I planted zucchini, so then I planted a soybean, and then the zucchini came up, and then the soybean came up. It's all right. Then we got more beans come up. There's an okra that were right there that I had planted, like 6 of them along this row, and only one of them came up here. The garlic's getting there. It's growing. It's garlic. Really, I'm excited to see how the elephant ones turn out, and if they turn out well, I'm excited to save a bulb and plant it again next year. This was a volunteer plant, I think, unless it was a replant from a squirrel. And so I didn't want it growing over here in my beans, and I didn't want it growing over there in my sweet potatoes, so I decided to stake it. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm going to guess and say it's probably a spaghetti squash. Maybe. I'm not sure, but I got to do some work on that because it's sending out a bunch of little extras, and I don't want these guys. So I'm going to trim those off and just work on the main branch going up there. And then I have some more cucumbers over here that are growing sweet potatoes. And then this was a extra tomato plant that we had gotten. And then these were all tomato plants that I had fried. Thought I overcooked them when I was trying to harden them off, and they all are bouncing back, but they are nowhere near, sorry, loud trucks. They are nowhere near the size of my tomato plants over here. So it shows you they were literally just like sticks with like a leaf or two on them, but they have done really, really well. This one's even got little blossoms on it. And that one's getting ready to bloom too. And then I have a couple more cucumber plants that I had just planted in the pot just to, why not plant them. And then this was a random couple of sweet potatoes. And then we have another ground cherry tomato plant, which I didn't even notice because it's hiding from me, but we got little pods on there already. That's going to be exciting. I'll have to show Drew because we didn't even notice that these were going on. I kind of thought it wasn't doing anything. That's going to be fun. He's going to really enjoy that. My zinnias, and then we got another sweet potato and another cucumber. I have never really had a success of growing cucumbers. So I'm like, you know what? We're going to grow a bunch. And if I have too many, well then I have too many. The strawberries are coming along really nicely. We've harvested quite a few of those, and I planted maybe too much okra. We'll see, because I have okra right there, okra right there. I think there's an okra back there. Then that is basically it for the back of, or for the entire garden. All of my herbs along the front are coming along really nicely. The rabbit didn't get that bean apparently, or that bean apparently. So I might actually have some beans trellising on my garden. We got to stop and look at Andrew's garden. He is really pumped. All of his potato plants were transplants from potatoes that were left in the ground in my garden. So he's excited because they're all starting to bloom on him. And his little pepper plants all have little, I'm blanking, little pepper flowers, whatever, on them. His soybeans have some of the most beautiful purple flowers. And then he's excited because his beans or his peas are also producing pea pods. And then his tomato, he also got a random tomato plant, so we're excited to see. We don't know what it is. It was given to us by a school, and so we're kind of excited to see what it turns out to be. And then our wildflower bed is flowering. It's just kind of where I plop seeds and stuff. And then our strawberries, I can't really tell you the difference between the two right now. I've been trying to compare. These really haven't gotten that big, but I think it's more on my fault, and lack of fertilizing is a big thing for these strawberries. I did not do proper fertilizing this spring, and it really, I think, screwed them up. And then we'll go and look at Ollie's garden. Ollie's got his beans coming, and he's got his pepper plants are producing peppers. His bean plants are just going like crazy. He has some basil back there, and he has flowers, and a little tiny garlic. And then over here he's got I put some lemon balm and some marjoram, I think that's how you pronounce it, and then he's got an eggplant that's growing as well. And his garden's doing pretty good too. Well, that was it for the garden tour. I'm excited to get out there and pull weeds, and I'm also excited because, you know, my garden may look nice and it may look really pretty and put together, but my main concern is if it produces food, because that's the main reason why I have my garden, is for food production. And I'm excited because so far it looks like there's food growing in my garden, and that's what one can hope for when they plant a garden, right? Is that food grows. Anyway, thanks for watching.